The year was 1988, when the Kurdish people were facing displacing, torture, inhuman treatment, and genocide in such harsh ways, such as smothered them to death with chemical weapons and buried them alive. These acts were part of the wider campaign known as Anfal, in which 10,000 of Kurdish were killed by the former Iraqi regime. The attack on Halabja on 16th of March 1988 was the most notorious act of chemical warfare in modern times. An estimated 5,000 people, mostly women and children, were killed when the Iraqi jets dropped poison gas such as mustard gas and nerve agent on the town. While these barbaric attacks were carried out against Kurdish people, the rest of the world turned a blind eye, stand by, and witness the evil act to take place, not only against Kurdish people in Halabja, but also against the humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are commemorating the 35th anniversary of chemical weapons attack on the town of Halabja by Saddam Hussein's forces. On behalf of the Kurdish community here in the United Kingdom, and on behalf of the UK Kurdish Association, we welcome you all to mark the respect of those innocent lives. Please, can we all observe a minute's silence? Thank you. You may remain seated. We would like to open our ceremony with a speech from the Right Honourable Member of Parliament for Streatham, that is Mr. Bel Ribeiro Adi. Will you attend to the stage? Mrs. Sorry, they haven't. It's all right, at least you attended.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to first extend my thoughts and prayers to all those who were impacted by the Halabja massacre, to those who lost loved ones in the attack, who sustained life-changing injuries, and to those who are still living with the lingering effects of the chemical attack, and to the Kurdish community around the world, and to those who are still feeling its impacts. The Halabja massacre was not an attack against another army or a defensive attack against a threat. It was called a massacre because it was an attack on a civilian-populated area, one of the largest chemical weapons attacks directed on civilians in history, killing up to 5,000. Often when we hold commemorative events, they are for events that have happened a long time ago, and those that were directly impacted have since passed. But the Halabja massacre is a relatively recent event in world history, and many of those who survived the attack are still alive today and still remember the horrific events of 1988. Not only do they remember, but they are still experiencing the impacts of the attack, because when chemical weapons are used, the impact of the weapon is not confined to the location and the time where the attack took place. The chemicals spread across the area, and they may linger for many years later, having lasting effects on those in the area that we've seen on the people in Halabja. The importance of remembering these tragedies and recognizing the vile ideology that sought to justify them cannot be understated. Failure to do so risks these tragedies occurring again. Unfortunately, it seems we are failing to learn the lessons of these past. Unfortunately, it seems we are failing to learn the lessons of these past atrocities. As we sit here today, millions of people across the globe are still subjected to targeted campaigns of persecution, violence, and genocide. We have seen time and time again What happens when prejudice, bigotry, xenophobia and racism are left unchecked and allowed to fester and installed in power? And still today, Kurdish people across the globe continue to be targeted and persecuted. In the 21st century, there have been more than 20 organised attacks on Kurdish people orchestrated by states, militaries and fanatics. It's crucially important that we proactively condemn the far-right ideologies peddled by regimes seeking to legitimise the heinous acts that we have seen in the past and that we are still witnessing today. So today we remember all of those impacted by the Halabja massacre, not just to honour those who lost their lives or their loved ones, but to remind ourselves that we cannot be complacent, because if we are, we risk these atrocities happening again. So on days like today, when we say never again, we must really mean never again. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I think it would be good to start by saying Roj Bash. Today, we gather to commemorate a tragic event that took place 35 years ago. The Kurdish genocide of Halabja. On this day, March 16, 1988, the life of thousands of innocent Kurdish civilians were forever changed. We must take a moment to reflect on the significance of this event. It is a moment of sadness, but also a moment of remembrance and hope. This genocide was a despicable crime against humanity and an attack on the dignity of Kurdish people. The use of chemical weapons is an act that violates international law and goes against basic principles of human rights. It is a reminder the worst atrocities that humans can commit against one another. The Kurdish people have endured many years of oppression and persecution. They have been denied their basic human rights, their culture, language, and identity suppressed. The Halabja genocide is a painful reminder of the lengths to which some people will go to impose their will on others. It is a stark reminder that even in the 21st century, humanity is still capable of committing unspeakable acts of violence. The Halabja genocide was a deliberate and premeditated attack on innocent civilians. Chemical weapons were used in a manner that were designed to maximize the suffering of the Kurdish people. Children, women, and men were indiscriminately attacked in a bid to crush the spirit of the Kurdish people. The attack of Halabja was not just an attack on the Kurdish people, but an attack on the humanity as a whole. The use of chemical weapons is a great violation of international law and threats to the security of all people. The world must never forget the lessons of Halabja and must work tirelessly to prevent such atrocities from happening again. As we remember the victims of Halabja, we must also recognize the resilience and strength of the Kurdish people. Despite years of persecution and oppression, they have never given up on their struggle for freedom and dignity. They have shown that hope and perseverance can lead to justice and healing. Genocide is not simply a crime at the local or national level, but a matter of international concern, entailing responsibility of international community to intervene to protect and prevent international crimes. As a society, it is our responsibility to create a world where such atrocities are no longer possible. We must work towards a world where diversity is celebrated and human rights are respected. This starts with educating ourselves about the event that have occurred in the past and committing to ensuring they never happen again. I urge you all to take a moment to reflect on the pain and suffering caused by the Kurdish genocide of Halabja. Let us remember the victims and their families and honor their memory by working towards a better world, one where atrocities like this never happen again. Let us also pledge to work towards a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, or background. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I would like, first of all, to thank Sarbaz, our Deputy Mayor in Lambeth, for hosting this very important commemoration and for inviting me to join you today. It is a privilege to be with you, to take part in this important act of remembrance for the 5,000 people who were murdered in the largest chemical weapons attack perpetrated against an innocent civilian population, and the 10,000 people who were injured, often with long-lasting consequences, including birth defects and cancer. The Halabja massacre was an attack perpetrated against Kurdish people in the city of Halabja on the 16th of March 1988, within living memory, just 35 years ago. We remember today an event of such horror and pain, in contravention of international law, and determined by the Supreme Iraqi Criminal Tribunal as a genocidal massacre against Kurdish people. We remember this event because remembrance is an important part of our commitment to peace and to resolve never again. We remember because the persecution, marginalisation and displacement of Kurdish people is not consigned to history, but is a present reality still today. And we remember because still across the world, in too many places, hatred has been allowed to take hold, and violence, persecution and genocide still follow. And we remember because the Kurdish diaspora here in the UK are a valued and cherished part of our community, many of whom fled to safety in the UK. And it is important to acknowledge and to celebrate that here in Lambeth, which has been declared a borough of sanctuary, particularly in the context of a UK government which has such a distorted, damaging and divisive narrative about refugees and asylum seekers. In Lambeth, we stand with vulnerable people who are in need of protection. And finally, I want to end with a note of hope. Tomorrow begins the festival of Nowruz, a celebration of spring and the start of a new year. One of my constituents described to me on Friday that Nowruz is a celebration of when the light wins again. And the light can win again when we make it, when we resolve never again, when we resolve to stand with those who are persecuted and marginalised, and when we resolve to hold to account those who commit acts of violence and acts of genocide, and when we resolve to work together for peace. Thank you.
Rojbash, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Honourable MPs, Members of Parliament, Councillors, Member of Kurdish community, distinguished guests, members of different political parties from all parts of Kurdistan region, very welcome, from Kurdistan, sorry. And very special welcome to very good friend of mine, Dr. Haval Abu Bakr, the Governor of Sulaimania, who came from Kurdistan region, Suleymaniye city, to be with us today. Today, we all gathered here at this great hall to commemorate a heinous crime committed against the peaceful Kurdish nation. On behalf of Kurdistan Regional Government representation in the United Kingdom, I extend my profound gratitude to Lambeth Council and the Deputy Mayor, particularly for organizing this rally and give me the honor to say a few words. Of course, everyone who supported you to organize this event, the Kurdish Association and the Kurdish cultural community. Ladies and gentlemen, March is known for many tumultuous events in Kurdish history, from grief and tragedy to the joy of the uprising where the Kurdish people rose against the dictatorial regime as a response to years of denial and oppression. The Kurdish New Year, Nowruz, also lies in this month. Today marks the 35th anniversary of the genocidal crime committed against the Kurdish population by Saddam Hussein, where he treated the Kurd and the people of Iraq most cruelly and savagely throughout his rule, and whose merciless solution to the Kurdish question was to ethnically cleanse the Kurdish nation and conceal the Kurdish voice of freedom forever. But we survived and continued to struggle, and now we have become an emerging democracy in the Middle East after the uprising of 1991, whose 32nd anniversary was last week. Today, we commemorate the Halabja, where on 16 March 1988, Saddam's regime bombarded the town of Halabja, killing 5,000 innocent men, women, and children with poison gas and injured 10,000 more, many of whom are still suffering from increased rate of cancer and congenital disabilities. Much of the world was unaware at that time or turned a blind eye to the crime, but the Kurds have done their utmost to ensure it is never again. Being among our good friends internationally today to mark the genocide is indicative that we have many friends as opposed to yesterday when only the mountain were friends. In this special rally, while we honor those who died in magnanimity, Halabja become a full-fledged governorate with all its institutions established. This is just a small compensation to the people of Halabja. And previously, in March 2010, the Iraqi High Criminal Court issued a verdict recognizing the Halabja and Anfal massacre as an act of genocide and sentenced the perpetrator. We were also grateful to the House of Commons, which officially recognized the massacre and Anfal as genocide in February 2013, and seeking the British government to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crucial to recognize the crime as genocide internationally. This allows the victim's soul to rest in peace, comfort their relative and survivors, and underpins the solidarity we still need in rebuilding our society for the benefit of the Kurd and the whole of the world. I conclude by saying that holding this event at this great Lambeth Hall to commemorate the Halabja massacre is a peaceful message of support to the people of Halabja, that they share the value of peace, coexistence, and religious freedom and resilience. It is also a message to empower the victim of genocide and give hope and continuously. And thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity.
one of the survivors of the Halabja chemical bombardment. Today I'm here as a live witness to share my story. I'm sorry if I make you sad. And thank you for the organizer. Give me a priority along a time. I try my best to make it shorter and finish in my time. If I not, please forgive me. Directly, I'm going to move into my story to save time. On 14 March 1988, or in night 14 March 1988, I was 11 years old. I was in bed with my family, father, mother, 4 brothers, and 1 sister. We all were in bed. We heard some sounds, bomb sounds, far from Halabja, out of Halabja. I mean, sound like a bomb sounds. We knew that something happened around Halabja. My older brother, Razgar, he was 19 years old, oldest brother. He went upstairs to see what's going on in a mountain around Halabja. Then he came back, he said, there's a war, there's a battle near from Halabja. Then my mother advised us to take all our beds and get into shelter. My father, a year ago, he made a shelter in a garden, in our garden house, because most of the time, in that time, most of the Halabja houses had on shelter, because previously many times bombarded by bomb, because Halabja in the border of Iraq and Iran, during the war of Iran and Iraq, many times bombarded. That's why many families, they made own shelter in own house. So we went to the shelter, I collected my beds and went to the shelter. We started sleeping in the shelter, but you couldn't sleep because bomb, time by time and gradually close to Halabja, then sound bomb close to Halabja. In the morning of 15th of March, the bombs and the sounds came to Halabja, and we now at Peshmerga with Iranian military, and that is to say shoulder by shoulder with the Iranian military, Peshmerga with the Iranian military, came to Halabja and controlled Halabja. On that day, people know that Halabja is free. People have two senses, two different senses. We've been very happy because this first time, in my life first time, we've seen Halabja freedom from Iraqi government. The second, people feel fear, scared, because everybody knows how Saddam Hussein is dangerous, and everybody expected Saddam Hussein will never accept that situation, pull back strongly and crushing. Then on that days going, people feeling safe and happy, and that they went, and night came. In that night, night of 15 March 1988, we're still in the shelter. We had a dinner in the shelter and sleep.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a great pleasure to present. Thank you for having me. It is a great pleasure to present very briefly the legal stand of the Halabja genocide within the national and international legal framework. Although this topic requires hours of attention and discussion, but I will briefly set out the structure of the Halabja genocide. And as we all know, genocide is found to be as old as humanity, yet it does not have a legal, long-standing international consensus concept. And for us as academics, it is compulsory to start with the definition of genocide in order to understand.
Hi everyone, it's an honor to be here today to talk about our project and the research we've been carrying on this very terrible subject. So I'm a researcher at King's College London, and a few years ago we started a project named The Lost Children of Halabja. So a little bit of historical background, although you're all very familiar with it, we heard a little bit today. So the report was on the 16th of March 1988, so today it's been the 35-year mark for this. There were over 5,000 people killed and 10,000 injured, but many more were dispersed, specifically children, and this specifically is where our research has gone toward. And the research started in 2018, and in collaboration with the KRG Ministry of Health to uncover the lost relatives. So first of all, what does it mean to be a relative? How can we help? Right, so we want to use science to reunite families, first of all, but this comes with some challenges. So the challenges are that the Middle East population hasn't really well characterized genetically, hasn't been characterized.
In the name of God, I feel so happy and delighted to be with you today, Your Excellencies. We've come from Suleimani to participate in this event. I would like, first of all, to thank my beloved friend, Mr. Sabaz Barzunji, the member of the Council of London Council, and my beloved friend and brother, Mr. Karwan Jamal Tahir, the representative of Kurdistan Regional Government in London,
کۆمەڵەی کوردی بەریتانیا,
the Kurdish British Association,
هەموو ئەو قسەکەر و ئامادە بۆ بەڕێزانە,
all the speakers and the attendees, respectful attendees.
ئێمە لە یادێکا کۆبوونێتەوە ڕاستە قوربانیەکەی ئێمە یاومانە, بەڵام لێکەوتەیەکە پەیوەندی بە هەموو مرۆڤایەتیەوە هەیە.
That's true. We've gathered here in an event that we, like Kurdish people, were the victims, actually. But the outcomes and the consequences of this event would tally all humanity at large.
مرۆڤایەتی بەدەست گروپێکی تیرۆریستیەوە کە داعش بوون گیرۆدە بوو.
The humanity was entangled with a group of terrorists called ISIS,
کە هیچ دەوڵەتێک بەڕاستەوخۆ پشتیوانی ناکردو,
which was not supported by any country directly.
بەڵام ئێمە لەو کاتەیە گیرۆدەی ڕژێمێک بووین کە منزومەیەکی ئیرهابی و کۆمەڵکوژ بوو.
But at that time, at the time of Halabja, we were entangled with a country or a government which was having a kind of organizational structure that was implementing that.
وهەموو وڵاتانی دنیا بە غەرب و شەرقەوە پشتیوانیان ئەکرد.
And all countries around the world, both from east and west, were supporting him.
ئەم کۆبوونەوەی ئەمڕۆ لە لەندەن ڕووداوێکی گرنگ و مێژوویە.
This gathering today in London is a historic and significant event.
چونکە دەریەخات کە چەند کۆمەڵگای مرۆڤایەتی پێویستی بەوە هەیە کە بە گشت ئەم جۆرە تاوانانەیە بچێتەوە.
Because it shows to which extent the international community need to face these challenges and these atrocities.
ئەو هەڕەشانەی لەسەر مرۆڤایەتین پێمان ئەڵێن ئەبێ بەیەکەوە بین.
The threats on humanity would tell us to be together.
کە تیرۆرە.
And those threats that humanity would face would be listed like terror,
مخدراتە,
drug abuse,
هجرەی قەسریە,
obliged or coerced immigration,
پیسکردنی ژینگەیە,
pollution,
شەڕە,
war,
خراپ بەکارهێنانی وزەیە,
the abuse of power,
خراپ بەکارهێنانی دەرمان و تیجارەتی دەرمانی ناشەرعیە,
abuse of pharmaceutical products,
گەندەڵیە,
corruption,
استیبدادی سیاسیە,
and political oppression,
کە ئەمەیان لە هەمویان خراپترە,
which is worse than the others.
چکە ئێمە توانیمان لە ساڵی 91 ستەمکار لە ناوبەرین بەڵام نەمانتوانی ستەمکاری لە ناوبەرین.
Because we could get rid and just eliminate an oppressor in 1991, but we couldn't eliminate tyranny as a concept.
هیوادارم لەگەڵمان بن بۆ پشتیوانی حکومەتی هەرێمی کوردستان و خەڵکی کوردستان لە هەموو پارچەکانی کوردستان بۆ ئەوەی جارێکی تر ئەم ڕووداوانە دووبارە نەبنەوە.
I hope you will be with us and on our side, on the side of Kurdish regional government and people in Kurdistan, in all parts of Kurdistan, to prevent this event to happen again.
چونکە دوجار تەنیا زیانەکەی بۆ ئێمە نابێ وەکو کورد زیان بە هەموو مرۆڤایەتیەک گەیەنێ.
Because finally it will not only affect us like Kurdish people in a bad way, negatively, but it will affect the whole humanity.
کورد بە هەڵەبجە و جینۆسایدە ناو نەچوو.
Kurdish people have not been eliminated by Halabja and genocide.
بەڵام مرۆڤایەتی خستە بەردەم بە پرسیارەتێکی گەورەوە.
But Halabja and Kurdish people have put humanity in front of a great responsibility.
بۆی هەڵەبجە دووبارە نەبێتەوە.
To prevent another Halabja to happen.
ئەبێ ئاشتی هەبێ.
بەلای خی گەورە و میهرەبان. I would like to welcome all the parties, representatives and members of the UK Parliament, members of the City of London County Council, Kurdistan Regional Government, representation in London and the oppressed Kurdish personalities and loyalists. We are gathered today for a painful and heartbreaking memory. Thank you for your warm participation. We hope that we can all prevent the Kurds from facing genocide and Anfal again. Kurds are a nation full of beauty, love, health, and humanity. We as the Kurdish Association of the UK continue to guide and familiarize the Kurdish diasporas with UK law. We always try to cross ethnic boundaries and have more coordination with other nations. Thank you for your concern and attendance. وبزماني شيريني خومان ما في وجه بخوم ددم هموتان بخير بين نندري حكومة برلماني بريطانيا من ولايات حكومتي هرم كردستان وجنابي بارزگاري سليماني دكتور هبال أبو بكر وتواي بارتو لان سياسي كان بريطانيا وبكردستان. إمام ركوب إنتو ويادكي ناخجين وناسور ومێ دەکەم ئەم جینۆسایدە جارێکی تر بەسەر کوردانەیەت هەمومان بۆ ئەوە لێرەکوو بینەوە کە ڕێگری بکەین جارێکی تر کورد ڕوبەڕۆی ئەم نەهامەتی و لە خراپەیە بێتەوە جارێکی تر و جارێکی تر وای لێ نەیەت کە تووشی دەربەدەری و وێرانی و ئەنفال و جینۆساید بێت. ئێمە وەکو کۆمەڵەی کوردی بەریتانیا لە پێشتر و ئێستا و داهاتوویش هەمیشە هەوڵمان داوە کە کارەکانمان سنووری قەومی تێبپەڕێنێت و هەمانکی زیاترمان هەبێت لەگەڵ دەوروبەرمانە. دڵخۆشین ئەمڕۆ توانیمان خۆشەویستانی کورد کۆ بکەینەوە لەم هۆڵەیە هەمومان بێکۆ بتوانین ڕێگیری بکەین جارێکی تر ئەنفال ڕوونەداتەوە. لەمێ دەیرەوە سوپاسێکی تایبەتی کوردیش سۆسایەتی بکەم کە بەڕاستی کینگز کۆلێج کوردیش سۆسایەتی کە یارمەتەدەرێکی باشمان بوون لەم کارەیە و سوپاسێکی تایبەتی جەنابی شێخ سەرباز بەرزنجی بکەم کە جهدێکی ماندوو لە ناسانەی کرد ومێ دەکەم هەمومان بتوانین ئەم یادە بە بەرزی ڕابگرین و شکۆی ئەم یادە ساڵانە ئاوا بۆ شێوازە بکەینەوە و دووبارە ڕێگرین لە جارێکی تر ئازار و ناخۆشی بۆ گەلەکەمان. زۆر سپاس.
Thank you very much, and I wasn't expecting to give any speeches. I am very grateful, but I would like to say very briefly, I will add my voice to all the speakers before me, but I would like to say we need to talk about lessons learned about this. We have managed to gather support because of Halabja for the Kurdish cause. We have had several elections back in Kurdistan. We have a local government in Rojava, but we haven't learned the lesson. You can't have a democracy without having opposition. Opposition is the cornerstone in any democracy. I would like to urge our governments, our people back home, to think wisely. Having a proper opposition in the society is very healthy and very much needed.
The memory of Halabja is never forget, and it's a infinite pain. The attack deep wounded the embedded the suffering of the Kurdish people. We recall the heinous crime that the dictatorship committed against peaceful people, against humanity. The attack shows what is possible in the name of the hatred and racism. The bitterness of that tragedy continues to warn us to this day of what a weapon of mass destruction can wreak when it falls in the hands of the tyrant, and what can be committed in the name of the hatred and racism. Today we carry the pain of the memory of the victims in our hearts. This crime has always been an answered question for those who provide the deadly gas to the regime. Isn't it a time to apologize Kurdish people and compensate city of Halabja? Thank you.